of people joining us today. If there is any member of the public that would like to comment, please let us know now.
I see none. Let's move on to presentations.
Chairman Alvarez, we have no presentations today.
Okay. Then next, I would like to move up from the end of the agenda, item number 8, director's comments and future agenda items. So with that, I've opened it up for director's comments.
Thank you, Mr. President or Chair. Director Williams here. As most of you know, that I am our representative, one of the representatives to the Metropolitan Water District Board of Directors. And I have to tell you that I'm very, very disappointed and really upset at the way our member, Gloria Gray, who happens to be the chair of Metropolitan, is being treated. And it's really disgraceful and downright makes me mad. But since I'm a water board director, I can't get mad. So we need to do something. I don't know how many of you have heard that she's been continuously attacked by a board member and his group of friends. And yesterday was kind of like a tipping point for me, because it was an all-out assault led by one individual, and that individual is the same individual that attacked her when she was competing for the chair second term. And I think he made it clear yesterday that he's the one because he's upset because he lost. And he can't wait until, I guess it's to be December, when she will be giving up her seat. That's because her second term will be up as chair of the board. That's the Metropolitan Board. But I think that we, West Basin, must make a comment that we will not tolerate this anymore. A number of community groups, because this is African American History Month, beginning February, and this assault is kind of unnerving because of that. We had Metropolitan had a young man give an outstanding talk about the importance of African American history, that we have endured tremendous assaults from, you might say, the day of when we were released from slavery. We were never really released because of the fugitive slave law that put us into what we became locked into, what some of you may have heard of, the Jim Crow era. So I'd like for us to get a copy of the comments that were made, and that we, West Basin, just get that to our members, because those of you who weren't there, you will not know what was said, but I think we need to do that. We've done this, as you might remember in Black Lives Matter, that one of our board members at that time attacked me, that Black lives really, in essence, don't matter. But we know that all lives matter. I mean, that's kind of a silly statement to make. But we need to address this. And I would appreciate it if we can come up with a way, staff, that we can do this. and have our board members take a stand on this, that we're not going to stand by and let this go on. And we've had several members of the public who are members of the NAACP. I am a member of the NAACP, life member, and my chapter, the Carson Torrance branch, a member from our organization spoke yesterday. And again, we need to do something, and I hope we can do it soon. So if there's some way that, Mr. Chair, that we can move this on to an agendized item, I think we, like I said, we did something like this back whenever, I don't remember when, but it was during the time of Black Lives Matter, and one of our board members stepped over the line. So this is not the first time we've dealt with this, something like this, so we need to look at that, what we did then, and make sure that we don't leave anything out, but to make sure that we sharpen it up.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Chair.
Okay. Yes. Quit elevating me to Mr. President.
Yeah, it's soon.
Any other directors' comments today?
I'd like to, hello, this is Don here. I'd like to concur with Director Williams, and I wholeheartedly agree with the thoughts expressed, and I'd like to see something done about this matter. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, dear.
Any other directors who'd like to make any comments today?
Mr. Chair. Chair,
Hello?
can you hear me?
Oh, Director Houston, go ahead.
There we go.
I hear you.
Well, first of all, I guess we've changed over to Microsoft's Teams, I think. But for what it's worth, I hope you can hear me okay. And secondly, I think that's the top of Director Alvarez's head, but I can't tell. Someone's not fully in the camera. Other than that, I don't have anything more to say at this moment. Just trying to make sure I see everybody's.
I couldn't understand.
Director Houston, do you mind repeating? I apologize, but we had a very hard time hearing you here. And I don't know if it's just the audio, and if we may not hear you any better the second time.
Okay, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. I was saying, I guess we transitioned over into Microsoft Teams, right? Instead of posting meetings.
That is correct.
Well, I didn't know.
Which of course I didn't know until I was trying to log on. But for what it's worth, I can only see the top of somebody's head, and I think that's Chair Alvarez.
That is incorrect. That is a guest.
Oh, that's a guest. Okay, sorry whoever the guest is, but I can't see anybody else on the camera except for Don Deere and myself. So just an observation. Just trying to figure out my name, and that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Staff, do you have some direction then on what to bring back at the next board meeting, or as soon as you have some material prepared?
Yes, of course. What we'll do is we'll put some instructions together in an email and send those out. It is a slightly different product as far as what they provide. I believe, and of course, I'm working off of an Apple here, but there is a means for adjusting your camera and seeing the different faces and product for the different people out there. So we'll try to get an email to you as soon as possible. The way it's set up here, I think in-house, I can see, of course, all of our directors. So Director Houston, we have staff that's going to send you a text right now as far as the instructions on how to adjust the camera settings.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. So if there are no further comments from any of the directors, we will move on the agenda to the action calendar. And the first item up on the action calendar is an agreement for on-call motor repair, rebuild, and replacement services. And Mr. General Manager, would you like to introduce and inform us about that item?
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman Alvarez. The first item, as you mentioned, is 5A, an agreement to award for on-call motor repair, rebuild, and replacement services. We do have an action with a staff recommendation. And for this presentation, we do have Jason Kuhn, who currently serves as our operations analyst.
All right, Jason, take it over.
Looks like he's in a bar.
Good afternoon, directors. Thanks, EJ. As EJ has previously mentioned, this agreement award is for a new contract for an on-call motor repair, rebuild, and replacement service at our various treatment and distribution pumping facilities to replace our current contract with Reed Electric. This motor repair contract will include many critical assets such as motors, mixers, blowers, and compressors that periodically require off-site maintenance and repair, and in some cases, replacement. The proposed budget is $300,000 for 2 years, beginning from March 1st of this year and ending in March 1st of 2024. These funds for this particular contract are included in the fiscal year 21 to 22 capital improvement, as well as the operations and maintenance budget, and for fiscal years 22 to 23 and 23 to 24 for capital improvement and operation maintenance budgets. Staff issued a request for proposals on January 6th, 2022 via West Basin's online bidding system. A mandatory but virtual pre-proposal meeting was conducted on January 13th, in which 3 vendors attended. On January 27th, 2 proposals were received. And for this particular RFP, district staff from both the engineering and the operations department, as well as a representative from our contract operator, Suez, evaluated each vendor by presenting 3 example scenarios, or example motors, for them to quote of varying sizes, configurations, and complexity for removal and installation. And we request a quote for each of them based on the specified scope. Staff then compared the proposed quotes to historical repair amounts. And for example, staff looked at, did each vendor accurately evaluate the number of hours required to remove or install the motor? Did they take a look at the complexity of how it's installed? Is it a horizontal or more vertically mounted motor? Furthermore, staff evaluated past records of performance through speaking with listed professional references, as well as taking into account our own past experience with Reed Electric. Staff also evaluated the comprehensiveness of the proposal and their safety record for the past 5 years. The summary of the final evaluation scores and rankings is provided in Table 1 below, and a detailed breakdown of the evaluation results are provided as Attachment A, or I believe page 6 of your packet. And with that, I'd like to read the recommendation first and follow up with any questions you may have. That the board authorize the interim general manager to enter into an agreement with R.A. Reed Electric Company for the procurement of on-call motor repair, rebuild, and replacement services for a term of 2 years from March 1st, 2022 to March 1st, 2024, for a total not to exceed amount of $300,000.
Director Williams, do you have any questions or comments?
Let's say I would have a question would be to Barcad, and to ask you, how do you feel about this? Are you comfortable with this? You put your name on it, so is this good?
Good afternoon, Chairman and Directors. Yes, it is good. Staff did a great job at soliciting the proposals and reviewing the proposals, and I fully concur with the recommendation.
Okay, then I would concur with staff.
Okay. I have a couple of questions. Currently, who is under contract to do the repairs of motors and the rebuild?
Director Alvarez, I'd be happy to answer it. I just want to confirm, it's a little bit hard to hear, but your question was, who is our current contract with?
Yes. Who's doing this now?
Our contract is currently with Reed, the same company as the recommendation.
Oh, okay. It is with Reed. And it was similarly, it was a 2-year contract, so we renew this every 2 years?
Actually, we started it off as a 2-year contract in 2017. the original amount was for $200,000, and we extended it an additional, I believe, 18 months with $75,000 of additional funds. So we've been with Reed for about 3.5 years so far.
Okay, and so how does work under this contract get triggered?
So in the past, how we've done any task orders with this particular contract, if there's a critical failure of a particular asset, we'll then ask Reed to come out and assess the damage or whatever the repairs need to be. Reed will then provide a quote for the task order, and will issue a task order based on the quote if we approve or disapprove of the quote.
Okay, but knowledge of the need to repair a motor and all that is generated by then the contract operator?
Correct. Either generated by our CMMS system, our asset management system, or by our contract operator.
So it would be Sirius or Infomark that would say, hey, we need a motor repaired or rebuilt.
That's correct.
All right. I'm just thinking that maybe in the future, obviously this is not part of their work, but given the size of that contract and that they do a lot of maintenance work, that maybe this would be something that when we look at renewing those contracts, that maybe that's just embedded as part of their responsibility. Just a comment for future consideration. Otherwise, on that, we'll go ahead and move this item. Well, hold on. Is any other directors have any questions or comments regarding this particular item?
No, I do not.
Seeing none, then we'll go ahead and move this item to the next regular board meeting. Okay, next item up is the purchase of an inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometer for the West Basin Water Quality Laboratory. Mr. General Manager?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Alvarez. The item before you is item 5B. As you mentioned, the purchase of an inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometer for West Basin's Quality Laboratory. This item does begin on packet page 7. And for the presentation today, we do have Jamie Malpeed, a water quality and environmental compliance specialist. Supervisor.
Thank you, EJ. Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the board. I am here today to present the action item on page 7 of your packet to purchase an inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometer, or ICP-MS, for West Basin Water Quality Laboratory. The West Basin Water Quality Laboratory, located at Rcip Budget, presently performs metals analysis for compliance monitoring and process control using 2 machines. An Agilent Technologies 7900 ICP-MS and a Perkin-Elmer Elon 6000 ICP-MS. West Basin purchased an Agilent Technologies 7900 ICP-MS in 2016. The other Perkin-Elmer machine in the laboratory has been operating for well over 20 years and is nearing the end of its serviceable life. Parts for this ICP-MS are becoming obsolete. Therefore, a new machine is required to maintain compliance. An invitation for quote, along with specifications for an ICP-MS, was posted on West Basin's online procurement system on October 26, 2021. 5 vendors received the notice, 5 accessed the documents, and 4 responded with a total of 5 quotes. On table 1 on page 8 summarizes the ICP-MS quotes submitted on November 9th. A detailed summary of all quotes is provided in attachment A on page 10. The ICP-MS specifications from the IFQ, are listed in attachment B on page 15. The lowest bid machine did not meet specifications for the cooling system. Therefore, staff evaluated the second lowest bidder and recommends the purchase of the Perkin-Elmer Health Sciences Incorporated Nexion 1000 ICP-MS. I will now read the recommendation. I recommend that the board authorizes the interim general manager to enter into an agreement with Perkin-Elmer's Health Science Incorporated for a total not to exceed amount of $267.83 for the supply and delivery of a Nexion 1000 ICP-MS for West Basin Water Quality Laboratory. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Director Williams, do you have any questions?
At this time, no.
Okay. I understand that we have a laboratory there. The range of the laboratory that we operate at the Ed C. Little plant is, in addition to all of the contract laboratory work that we do.
I'm sorry, sir. Could you repeat the question? I'm having trouble with my audio.
Okay, my question is, we have a contract for laboratory services.
We do have a contract for certain laboratory services.
Right. So this is in addition to, we do our own laboratory work in addition to contract laboratory work.
This is for the samples that we do internally at the West Basin lab and at Rcip Budget.
Okay. So we do our own laboratory work in addition to the work that we send out to contract laboratories.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. So is it possible that the remainder of the work that we do internally should be contracted out?
It could. However, there are some issues when we need samples, especially for process control. Metals, this machine is used for metals. The holding time for metals goes from 28 to 180 days. If we need a fast turnaround time, it'll be cheaper than expediting the samples at our contract lab. So this is more for process control and swift turnaround on a needed basis.
All right, so it's for convenience.
I'm sorry?
It's for convenience.
More than convenience. I believe it's necessary for compliance.
And I'm happy to chime in on that, Director. Good afternoon. For our laboratory, as Jamie started to explain, it's not convenience. As we know, at the treatment plant, during the upset, we needed information within hours to make adjustments as water quality, and we get such fluctuations in influent water quality. Over 80% of the samples we need are done in-house. The contracts labs handle approximately 20%. We have to be able, like many other treatment plants, to turn things around. For some of the samples, the way commercial laboratories work, first of all, you have to get them there with the courier, which we could do, but you pay for what their holding time is and contractually. So for example, when we've had a machine be down, if it was broken and we had a fast turnaround, sometimes it can be 4 to 8 times the cost of a normal sample to expedite it. And you still can't have those results within hours or the next day like we had to do during the upset, and we frequently do for adjustments. So for some of this equipment, convenience is a great word, but the convenience is also part of our optimization and efficiency to make sure to make adjustments on the spot and be able to pivot so quickly.
All right, that's all my questions for right now. Appreciate it.
Thank you, that sounds reasonable to me.
Any other board members have any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move this item forward. Concur, Director
I
Williams?
concur.
Okay. Next item up is the agreement for the funding, design, and construction of the Palos Verdes Recycled Water Pipeline Project.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Alvarez. As you mentioned, this item does begin on packet page 20. It is an agreement for the funding, design, construction of the Palos Verdes Recycled Water Pipeline Project. It is CIP number 10047. If you turn to your packet, it's important to note that West Basin Municipal Water District has been working in conjunction with Cal Water Service Company and the Palos Verdes Golf Course and actively pursuing the use of recycled water up there in the Palos Verdes area. It would approximately utilize 240 acre-feet of water, recycled water per year. And this is a project that began or was contemplated back in as early as 2015. For some of our board of directors, you might recall that this project was included in an integrated regional water management project list. The Greater LA County did submit this to the Department of Water Resources, and West Basin Municipal Water District did receive a substantial grant for this project, and I believe it's in the amount of $2,045,000 and $2,045,537 for this specific project. I do want to give very specific credit to West Basin staff, as well as the PV Golf Course and our partners at Cal Water Service Company. This project and the agreement for funding has been contemplated for years and years, but has been recently picked back up, and we've been working together to get something done and to get everything finalized. So I wanted to point out that we do have a draft agreement on packet page 24. It is important to note that this is a draft agreement. We've been working with all three parties. The idea or concept behind this agreement is to memorialize the total contributions of all of the parties. And as I mentioned, along with the Department of Water Resources, we do expect to receive substantial funding from our partners. This includes the funding in the amount of $2.5 million from Cal Water Service Company, as well as $1.1 million in totality from the Palos Verdes Golf Club. That includes $500,000 for off-site infrastructure, as well as an investment of $600,000 for on-site improvements. As we hope to fund the remaining portion of this project with help from the State Water Resources Control Board, as far as utilizing the state revolving fund, we wanted to put this agreement before you today for your consideration. Again, our hope is that all three parties would agree as to the substance of the agreement, though there could be minor alterations not of substance. So with that, staff's recommendation is that the board authorize the interim general manager to execute an agreement for the funding, design, and construction of the Palos Verdes Recycled Water Pipeline project, barring any significant modifications to the January 18th, 2022 draft provided in attachment A. And just for additional information, you can also find the grant agreement for that integrated regional water management grant that we included in here, and that begins on packet page 38. We do have an additional information item for this specific project where we would provide a more detailed update of the project itself, but this, of course, is focusing in on the funding agreement. So with that, Chairman Alvarez, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Would it be worthwhile to also consider that item now?
If you'd like, we can move that up and we could have staff review the project with you at this time.
Doesn't matter, it's gonna take the same amount of time no matter what. So if you want to move it up, I don't have a problem with it.
I just want
Information.
gets it out of the way.
Yeah, sure.
So at the direction of the chair, we can have staff present, which would be item 6B. It's an information item.
Thank you, EJ. Directors, just to check on the sound, can you guys hear me well?
Yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Alvarez, members of the committee. If you can please come into agenda number 6B on your packet. This is an information item for the Palos Verdes Recycled Water Pipeline Project. The Palos Verdes Recycled Water Pipeline Project is a project that it's going to be bringing recycled water to Palos Verdes states and also additional sites in the city of Torrance. The pipeline includes 3.5 miles of new pipeline as well as a 500-gallon per minute pump station. We are in the process of finalizing the plans for the permitting system for the pipeline project. And we're also in the process of finalizing the 90% design submittal comments, and also we're working with the jurisdictional agencies for the review of the pump station. The pipeline, again, as I mentioned, is starting to get ready for bid package as the permits are starting to come in. And as soon as we get all the comments from those jurisdictional agencies, we're going to be able to provide a bid package and be able to go out for advertisement. In anticipation of the upcoming construction activities, we have issued a request for proposals for construction management services. And the advertisement is starting December 22nd of 2021. And the bids or proposals were actually received on February 1st of this year. The RFP basically is for construction management services of both the pipeline and the pump station. And a copy of the scope of work has been attached under your package, an attachment A. It is our intentions to come into the board in March 2022 to bring you with a summary of the results from the solicitation that we are doing for construction management services, and give you a summary of all the logistics and results that we got from this particular activity. In addition to that, we have attached attachment B, which is just a summary of some of the board meetings in which we have obtained approvals for this particular project. Please know that attachment B only refers to action items. It does not reflect all the other information items that we have also presented to the board. And with this, that concludes my presentation. I will be happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead.
Let's see. What about the public outreach, the community engagement on this project? Where
Yes.
is that?
Yes, yes. Last year, we went out for advertisement for consulting services for construction outreach, and there was Murakawa Communications was awarded the project following competitive bidding or proposals advertisement process that was Basin follows. We are currently working on preparing all the data. Sorry, I'm hearing a lot of echo. Sorry, I apologize for that. But we're in the process of putting together draft letters and basically have everything ready for when we start the construction. We can start issuing all those letters. And also there's already surveys going on and approaches, planning that we are following that will be done in advance of the construction. So like both construction outreach and construction management are basically activities that we like to have set up a little bit earlier, so that way when we start hitting the ground, we're ready to go.
Okay, has there been any communication with the city on how the community is feeling about this project? So it won't be like a big surprise to them when they start getting information?
No, it shouldn't be a big surprise. We're lucky enough that one of the principal parties to this agreement, the PV Golf Club, is actually a city-owned property. So the golf club has been working with the city. We will have Tricia Murakawa and Murakawa Communications with kind of a hotline specifically with the city, and we'll be working with everybody to provide signage. And really, as Veronica pointed out, we'll get the word out long before anybody has any impacts due to the construction. And I guess I would add one last thing. We did have an opportunity to meet with our Cal Water Service Company. As you might recall, they did have a very successful outreach program with their extended construction project. And so we'll be working with them as far as we're learning a little bit of the lay of the land as far as how they did it, because they were extremely successful.
They were very, and people were very excited about them. And I heard nothing but praises for them. And it was a huge project compared to what we're doing. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Williams. I have some kind of questions or for clarification. In terms of financing, and it's been mentioned in the report to some extent, but can you walk me through exactly how all of this is coming together? Because we have a mix of contributions and well, just walk me together through the numbers, and then I'll have some other questions.
So this particular project, I believe it's on the second page or your package 6B, page 198. Essentially has a summary of all the money or the funding that is coming into the project in regards to external parties. We have a grant from the State California Department of Water Resources of $2,045,537, which basically will be applied towards the construction. In regards to California Water Service Company, the agreement, the item that EJ was presented just a few minutes ago, basically is for that agreement in which $2.5 million will come into the project, as well as $500,000 from the Palos Verdes Golf Club.
Director, so in summary, the total project is estimated to cost in today's dollars $12.9 million.
Right.
And the funding coming in from outside sources right now, if you were to add them up, is close to $5 million. So if you subtract those two, you're left with $7.9 million, which would be on West Basin's contributions if this was to proceed. The $7.9 million, we are right now in the process to get, hopefully to get low interest loans for the $6 million of that. $1.6 million of that has already been spent in the feasibility studies, in preliminary design reports, the environmental documentation, the property acquisitions, and some of the final design work that was done.
Okay, thank you very much. So the 1.6 million is in the 12.9.
Correct.
So on the 6 million, and it says that West Basin intends to secure a low interest loan for the 6 million. What interest rate are we looking at when you say it's a low interest loan?
I believe the interest rate that we're looking for is 1.5%, but I'll have to confirm that.
Okay, and so when we say a loan, are we talking about then going out and doing a bond financing for this, or are we talking about borrowing against commercial paper and then longer term folding that into a long-term bond?
Director Alvarez, this would actually be funded when we use the term a low interest loan. We're looking for the state revolving fund loan,
Okay.
which is comes through the State Water Resources Control Board. And I'm looking right now for their interest rate. I do believe that we successfully received the lower interest rate. I'm just trying to confirm exactly what that was.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
I believe it's today's number is around 0.8%.
So it's going to be a state revolving loan fund. That's what we're looking for.
That's correct.
Okay. So I just wanted clarification of where that money was going to come from. And it kind of begs the question, incidental to this, but just recently here, we had a bond refinancing, and we were told at that time that we refinanced it at 1%. What did we finally refinance at?
Margaret, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you repeat the question?
Margaret, if you will recall, we recently did a bond refinancing.
Correct.
And at that presentation, it was stated that we were looking at refinancing those bonds at 1%, which I thought was fantastic and still do. So the question is, what did we finally refinance it at?
So it came in, the total interest cost came in at about a 1.54% for the district's deal. It is my understanding in confirmation with our financial advisor that the that the rate that we received on these low interest loans from the state revolving fund is
calculated at 50% of the last year's GO bonds, so the average of what that is. And so understanding in the conversation we just had yesterday with financial advisor, it was between 0.8 for clean water projects up to 1.1 for drinking water projects. So I'm assuming this is under the clean water project, so 0.8. But we'll have to see sort of where we were in line, if you will, with the authorization and approvals that the state has, but that's where it is today.
Okay. So we didn't really get that 1%. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Good rates.
So 1.5 is still not bad. And you said 1.5, right, is what you refinanced it at, or 1.52, something like that?
1.54 is what we received on our bond transaction from last week when we refunded about 24 million in bonds. So yeah, 1.5%.
Okay, that's pretty good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. As far as this agreement, and I'm looking at the agreement, you stated earlier it's a draft agreement, so the parties are not committed to signing this yet, and there may be changes to it.
So we've had several conversations with them. The PB Golf Club did want to take it to their board. We let them know that we would be taking it ultimately to our committee and then our board later this month. And then, of course, Cal Water Service Company, they have really run the agreement up the flagpole. They feel very confident that the draft is acceptable. So by the end of this month, we would be ready to finalize the draft, and hopefully by the end of or by our full board meeting, we would kind of iron out any sort of edits that are required.
Okay. All right, so the agreement may change subject to the other parties reviewing it. And if you anticipate that will happen in the next several weeks.
Correct, and I would not, at this point, I would not expect any substantive changes or edits. The idea behind this agreement and the history of this agreement goes pretty far back. Originally was a memorandum of understanding to just simply memorialize the investments made by all three parties. And so the agreement has taken kind of a little bit of time to get it done, but that's the intent of the agreement, is to just memorialize that, the rules, and of course, the functionality of what every party is getting for their investment.
Okay. In going through the agreement, and I think the critical party, the only party that's really going to give us money for construction is going to be Cal Water. The Power Foods, of course, is really spending all their money on their own site.
There is funding being made by them off-site, but that's to get water on their site.
Right. So it's not part of our construction.
Correct.
The $2.5 million that Cal Water is going to be contributing to this is a real critical item here, I think. And is that, do you confirm that, or?
That is correct, and if you look at, there's an exhibit to this agreement that actually shows the layout.
Yeah.
And I can have.
On page 36.
Packet page 36 will have the exhibit of the project.
I got it.
Correct.
So on that, what is the certainty that Cal Water will be doing this? Since this is a draft agreement right now, have they gone to, typically the investor owners have to get all of their, if it's going to go into their rate base, etc., they have to take this to the PUC. So where are we, or where are they, I should say, in that process? And is that, are they going to guarantee the $2.5 million whether they get PUC blessing or not?
It's my understanding that they are not taking this to the California Public Utility Commission. They are committed to this funding. They will own a portion of this pipeline, but as noted in the agreement, West Basin would be in charge of design and construction of that. We would be handing over the asset to them at the conclusion of the construction.
Okay. So, but they're going to invest in this, whether they get it, put it into their base or not.
Correct. This agreement would be done without any involvement or movement through the Public Utility Commission. And I'll confirm that.
It will take steps towards that, but with the execution agreement, the execution of the basic agreement is putting in 2.5.
I get that because, subsequent on page 27 of the packet, it says the letter of support that we will provide them for the letter of support so that they can go to the PUC in order to get this in their rate base. And so that's my concern. There's no guarantee unless they're going to sometimes investors will out of their own money, the stockholder money, invest in a project. And so when I read that language, and I read the language of the committee writing a letter of support, which I think is fine, that's not a problem. But that begs the question, are they going to say, we can either put it in our rate base or we cannot. If it doesn't go in the rate base, then they're not going to participate. And again, I go back, as you said earlier, this is a draft. They haven't signed it yet. And I'm a little bit concerned about that because traditionally, from what I know of the investor owned, they always want to make sure that whenever they acquire an asset, that it is in their rate base.
Yeah, if you look at packet page 27, the responsibilities and tasks performed by Cal Water, the 2.2.1 funding, we believe summarizes this, and our discussion and intent and expectation is that Cal Water Service Company will be contributing the $2.5 million to this project, and that's the purpose of memorializing it with this agreement.
Okay, so they're basically guaranteeing that. They will sign this agreement as is. This is not, as you mentioned earlier, this is a draft. This is not going to change.
We would not, as interim general manager, I would not execute an agreement if it substantially changed. And ultimately, I would not execute an agreement until this is ratified by the board of directors later this month. So this is coming through the committee process. We're trying to expedite it as we're working with all of the parties and we're working with the State Water Resources Control Board. So this is our staff's intent to move this through the committee and ultimately the board process. We want to bring you the current draft. I do not expect any changes of substance to the agreement.
Okay, what I was thinking is that maybe we want to hold off until the draft is finalized, and then all the parties are saying this is a final agreement, and then we move it forward to the board.
If it's the direction of the committee, what we can do is at the end of this month, if we don't have it finalized, it's not a final draft, we can pull the item from the full board.
Okay, we're gonna put it on the agenda.
Correct. Correct. That's what I meant by pull. I apologize.
I don't know if you have any other questions. Any questions from other board members? Okay. My preference is that we move this forward. I have some questions about the. I would move it forward with a caveat that it will only be brought forward to the full board once everybody agrees that it is a final draft and there will be no changes. So that you have the consensus of, in particular, Cal Water, to the $2.5 million commitment.
Understood.
Are you okay with that, Director Williams?
I can go with that.
Okay. So with that, we'll move this forward. I still think that at the end of the day, it's a very expensive water we're giving away up there.
What's that?
The cost of this does not justify the amount of water that can be purchased, but that's a separate discussion that we've had in the past.
I've heard that ever since I've been on this board.
Yes. And hopefully this will be the last one of the purple parks extensions that we do, but that's to be decided. Okay.
Life is moving now.
So as we move forward and being at already 5 o'clock, and we're going to move to the information calendar, I would like to move up because we've had it now for several months, and I think it's still important for us. And I know it's critical for me, and I think it's very important for Director Williams to talk about the CRP program. So if we can take that item first on the information calendar.
Happy to do that, Chairman Alvarez. As requested, that would be item 6D. That is the capital improvement program update. It does begin on packet page 229. And for this presentation, we do have our Executive Manager of Engineering and Operations, Bark of Missourian, as well as our Manager of Engineering, Wendell Johnson.
Thank you, EJ. Director, with this presentation today, we hope to answer some of the questions that you've been asking us the last couple of Engineering Operation Committee meetings. You've asked us definitions about the capital project, is it on our admin code? You've asked us a little bit of the history of when the board has approved some of these projects, or how did they approve some of this project. What are some of the costs related to the projects historically, as well as some of how are the projects, how do we plan to fund these projects moving forward. So before we dive into each individual project, we'd like to talk about some of the questions. So if you open up to packet page 232. This question was asked at the last engineering opportunity. What is a capital project? If you were to Google what is a capital project, you get slightly different versions of it, but capital project is a long-term capital-intensive investment project with a purpose to build upon, add to, or improve a capital asset. While the definition of a capital project is not included in our administrative code, the definition of capital assets is. Our administrative code says capital assets are lands, improvements to land, easements, buildings, building improvements, vehicles, machinery, equipment, works of art, and historical treasures, infrastructure, and all other tangible and intangible assets that are used in operations that have initial useful life extending beyond a 3-year reporting period. So our policy when it comes to capital assets, which was adopted by a resolution of the board, basically says there are certain assets, if it's $10,000 or above, if assets is $10,000 or more, or if it has a useful life of 3 years or more, then it's a capital asset. So capital projects are typically defined by their large scale and large costs relative to the other investments that involve less planning and resources. So sometimes we're replacing capital assets without necessarily turning it into a big project, and sometimes a capital project in itself is formed. So our capital improvement program, while in the past we've been focusing on giving you updates on some of the pending projects, the high activity projects, we didn't necessarily show you everything that's in the CIP program. That was, I believe that was one of the questions. So our CIP budget includes funds for prioritized capital projects, as well as line items for capital assets, refurbishment, and replacements. So we're going to talk about both of those today. On the next slide, packet page 233, just to quickly talk about what are the drivers for us to select and put in and recommend and prioritize capital projects for. So primarily, the drivers are related to the district's strategic goals. If the district is looking into a new local supply source, ocean water desalination plant, for example, a capital project is formed to look into that. Recycled water program expansions as a strategic goal. If we're looking to put in more pipelines, more pump stations, expanding the distribution system, those are capital projects. System enhancements to improve reliability, redundancy, those could be capital projects. Customer service, the district historically has established a level of service for its customers, so sometimes if you want to achieve a certain level that could call for a capital project. Contractual obligations, for example, contractual obligations for our refineries. If we have to give them a certain water quality, but the water quality that we are getting to our treatment facilities has changed over time, to maintain the product that we have promised, that might drive a certain capital project to improve or enhance technologically some of the processes that we have. There's always environmental, safety, and compliance drivers. Sometimes in an emergency, a particular asset has failed. We make an urgent repair, but ultimately we have to do a more permanent repair. That could be a capital project. And then lastly, asset management. We have to look at the strategies for our asset management. Are there certain assets that we basically run to fail? And once they fail, we do a replacement or a repair. There are other assets that we would preferably not run to fail, but make a replacement or repair before it gets to that level. So asset management strategy could also be a driver for the capital projects. On the next slide, you may recall this from our budget workshops last year. In the next 2 or 3 slides, you'll see all the different projects that are included in the capital budget. You may recall that we categorize those projects into new infrastructure projects, for basically facilities that don't exist today, but could and will exist at some point with capital investment. And these are the new infrastructure projects that you see before you. On the next 2 slides, you'll see the projects related to rehab and replacement type of projects. So again, those are facilities. This is more related to asset management. Those are facilities, for one reason or another, that have to be either upgraded, improved, or replaced, or repaired. And then lastly, we had another category on the next slide, and that's the other category. And in that category, we had the Ocean Desal project that has since been terminated. We also, in the other category, we put in the labor associated with all with the implementation of capital projects. We also have headquarters building type of projects and IT-related projects. So in this presentation today, you'll see the full list of the budgetary items, not only the capital projects, but also those annual budgets for those annual refurbishments and replacements. And we'll talk about those a little bit more towards the end of the presentation. With that, I'm going to be turning it over to the Manager of Engineering, Mr. Wendell Johnson, to talk about how the projects are presented in this presentation. They're categorized a little bit differently through the different phases that they're in. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Wendell.
Thank you, Dr. Kev. Good afternoon.
Wendell, hold on. Before we do that,
yeah,
I do have some comments or questions before we get into the individual projects. Director Williams, do you have any questions right now?
Well, I was just wondering that every asset is not necessarily a project, that it doesn't move to be a project for improvement until you designate it as a project. It could be a capital investment, but not necessarily a capital improvement project.
Correct.
So we need to know, when does it move, what creates the project, the improvements, and then to the budgeting and all that stuff follows.
And that's a very good question. So the decision to when to move into a project, that's made on a case-by-case basis. So I'll just give an example. We replaced the sodium hypochlorite tanks, and we replaced all 4 of them. So at first, we saw one of them in bad condition. We did a condition assessment to all of them. We discovered that all 4 of them were really in bad condition. In addition, the containment area and the footings all needed repair. So instead of doing the tank and the tank and the tank, there was some cost efficiencies into doing it all together, taking into consideration shutdowns and potential loss of production and revenue associated with that. So that's just one example of where we contemplate an asset replacement and see if a project is better to do, has some cost efficiencies to implement, whether it's time efficiency or cost efficiency.
Because there's some work that will never move into the capital project category, but it'd just be a maintenance repair. Right?
Correct.
Okay.
Absolutely right.
And to that point, I think that we need to start differentiating. I would prefer that we would start differentiating, especially as you budget. You budget capital projects, and those are long-term capital investments. Kind of had a definition up there. And then there are projects that are more, and you have some of these here, and you just mentioned the sodium hypochlorite tank, more of a maintenance requirement. And so, to me, they fall into two slightly different pots. They're kind of administered similarly, but not necessarily identically. Similarly, meaning that you to put together a specification for contacting the work that's required to do the restoration of sodium hypochlorite tanks, for example. But that's not a large significant investment. That's more really in the repair category. So as we look at the budget, I would like to see more of a split on that. Just when I really look at repair types of projects, I think they have to be funded out of ordinary income. You know, I got to repair my car. I got to replace whatever, you know, my oil pump next month. I'm going to have to pay for that. I'm not going to refinance my car to replace the oil pump, if I can use that analogy. So I think that as we move forward, and that's why we're kind of going to have this discussion about CIP and how we deal with CIP. There is, as you mentioned, the sodium hypochlorite, very good example. All we're doing is really, the tanks are there, etc. It's some remediation work and rehabilitation of those tanks. That's just an operational cost, and it should be budgeted that way, and it should be paid for out of ordinary income. And we would set a pot of money aside to repair things like that, versus, you know, major new types of investments or complete replacement of a facility. So in terms of, I think, just giving you some feedback into our expectations, and I think why Director Williams raised that question, and I concur, we do need to split that out. And CIP, and there's operational issues, and we're going to budget so much for operations, and there are things that are going to come up throughout the course of the year that it's not a net new investment, it's a replacement. And again, it's a simple analogy, but I go back, I got to replace the water pump or the oil pump on the car, and I just don't have to pay for it. I don't get to refinance my car to do that.
Right.
And it might not be insignificant. It might cost me $1,000 to replace the water pump, but I got to do it.
Right. And for repairs of such, correct, that's absolutely what happens here at West Basin. And when we're talking about repairs, so we do have our categories right now. We got the new infrastructure, we got the R&R. The R&R, if you will, is what you were basically talking about, is more of maintaining whatever is necessary to keep the operations of the plants going. And in that R&R, when we look at funding, we have a discussion, engineering has a discussion with finance to say, okay, this upgrade or this replacement of, let's say, a tank, how long is this tank going to last for? Is it going to last for 2 years? Is it going to last for 3 years? Is it going to last for 15 or 20 years? And we say, okay, if it's going to last for 15 or 20 years, we could technically fund it with debt over the 15 and 20 years of its life. Some of the R&R work, as you'll see in the slides, we determined that no, this doesn't have a long life to it. So it's best that it come from PAYGO, from our reserve fundings. That's kind of the strategy and the discussion that we've had traditionally at West Basin when determining what type of funding goes towards those type of R&R projects. But it's certainly something that we could discuss further moving forward to the board's discretion.
Yeah, I think that should be defined in the program. When do you move from maintenance to a capital project? There's a dollar amount and years involved, right? It should be clearly delineated in a paper.
And to that point, the dollar amount itself isn't the critical thing. For example, one of the biggest expenses is well, not the biggest, but a large expense, very large, it's $6 million plus, is the cathodic protection. But cathodic protection really isn't a capital project in the sense that you're not going to, there's nothing to amortize. All you're doing is going in and doing something like, again, simplistic analogy, painting. The reason for painting is protecting a surface from the environment, right? So if I live by the beach and I got wood, I need to paint it more frequently in order to protect the wood. So we're investing in cathodic protection here to protect the asset. But it itself is not a CIP, any more than painting the house is to maintain it. So for dollars, sometimes is
the dollar and the years values.
Yeah, and what the project is differentiated. I'm not saying that cathodic protection is a bad thing. It isn't. It's necessary to protect the investment. But
a monthly expense.
It should have just been paid for out of ordinary income. Okay? So I would like to see that discussion and that fleshed out more as we move forward with this year's budgeting process, so that we really start saying, here's the commitment we're making to long-term capital projects, and then we're going to determine how we need to finance those. And and some of the operational things are unknown. You don't certainly break tomorrow that you did not anticipate breaking this year. I didn't anticipate that my water pump was going to go out tomorrow, but I got to deal with it now. So I've got to set aside some money so I can deal with those kinds of emergencies. All right? So this is just so that we're thinking, and we're bringing stuff back. Let's bring it back with a little bit more thought behind these things, and not just one pot of money out there, and we don't know what's what. As I went through this list of projects, I'm going to ask a very direct question. Is this it?
Yes.
Okay. The reason I ask that is we've now met on this particular issue since we brought it back and said, here's how we want to categorize it, at least 2 times. And prior to that, we always got the CIP updates. And then the last 2 times, we had a total of 18 projects that we presented. And so this time, and that included a mix of those what we'll call CIP, as we call it here, new infrastructure projects, and R&R projects. That was that list of 18 that you presented to us in the past. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So today, if I go through this list, it's more than 18, and I get it's a combination. It's a total of 34, or at least 31, but then 34 if you call the membrane replacements and compliance, the lab, etc. 34 versus 18. One of the things that I think we're frustrated, not I think, but we're frustrated with, is that it's always a moving target. It's like card Monte is, where's the card reading today? We would like to just know, here's the list of projects, and I think that's why we asked last time, and I think the time before that for every project, and even in the list today, we have projects without CIP. Let's go ahead, and if they don't have a CIP, let's assign them a CIP. so that we can say, here's the number, if it's a CIP or it's an R&R project being paid from whatever source of money. And again, you know, what the status of that is, and a little more comprehensive. I appreciate very much the description of where we are today, and we have a lot of nice slides, etc. And that's great information. But the critical information as a decision maker, what I want to know is, okay, what's the project? When did we approve it? Why did we approve it? How did we budget for it? Did we budget for it? Those are, as a decision maker, I don't need to get into the details of how the project is being done. You know, you would give me a status and say, we're on schedule, we're behind schedule, here's where we are, we're over budget, we're under budget, etc. And that's good. But as a decision maker, I really want to know what are the projects, why are we doing it, when were they approved, how much money was budgeted for, and where is that money coming from?
And I believe we included those in the slides.
They're kind of there, but and I don't just, otherwise we'll be here all afternoon. If we can just get that in a summary table, okay? But like I say, and I'm asking the question again. I know I'm kind of beating a dead horse, but I hear that when it's like I see something one week and I see something another week, and it's like, what changed is what? So for 2 months consistently, you gave me 18 projects.
Right.
And I put a list together of them. I can go back. I can show you here's what you presented last month. This is what you presented the month before. Today, you're giving me a list of 34. Oh, wow. What happened? So, all you want, you know, is how many are there, what are they, and how do we get to the point where we are today? And then moving forward, we don't have that, hopefully we don't have that problem. We have a process that says, here's what we need to do, here's how we're going to do it, this is how we're going to spend money, and these are the projects that need to be done in order to accomplish that.
Okay. Well, noted, Dr. Alvarez. We were just going to explain, Wendell was going to just explain that we focus on the 18-19 projects because those necessarily had the highest activity, but we hear what you're saying. You want all of it. What we have in here, those 3 slides that I went through, you can see there, those have 41 CIP budget items. Again, not all of them are projects. Some are annual refurbishments, replacements, and so you can see those 3 are, that's the list, and that's what was presented last year as a budgeting process. And we hear what you're saying. Well noted. We'll continue to show everything, and we'll send you the table that you requested.
I missed that. You're going to show everything, what do you mean?
All the projects that are part of our CIP program are listed in this presentation.
Okay. But for the monthly report on project activity, I think we're just talking about the projects that are budgeted and that we're keeping up with, right?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. But
all projects,
all that's budgeted, I mean.
But all CIP projects are not budgeted, right? I mean,
no, we only work
not budgeted.
With the exception of one, which is the Villa de Salter, we're working on projects that are budgeted.
Have a budget.
Correct.
Okay. Very good. Then we need to know the status of those.
And I take a little bit of difference with that because I never really saw the budget. I think I asked these questions when I went through the budget process, and I was never given, I said, give me a list and tell me how much we're going to spend on each project, and I never got that. But okay.
Give that to him.
Okay. As we move forward in this budget cycle, I do want to see, here's the CIP, and here's a line item. Every project is there here's the budget, etc. So that it's very clear, this is what we're going to spend money, and this is how we're going to get the money to spend. So that's my point. All right. So just moving forward. When we do the presentations here, and Director Williams, please put in your 2 cents. So my 2 cents is, I would like, again, the table that tells me project number, brief descriptions, just remind me, oh yeah, that's our project, date approved, budget, funding source, and status of where we're at with the project, etc. And then you don't need to go through 18 or 20 projects. On any given month, when we have these meetings, let's highlight the critical projects that are either having some problems, are getting wrapped up, or just need to be viewed. Because otherwise, some of these, we can go through the 18 projects every month, but after a while, we all get say, okay, I heard that before, I've seen that picture before, I've seen that picture before. So to make your jobs a little bit more efficient and to save our time, a good solid table that gives me all the information, that's, as a decision maker, what I need. And then, yes, I need to know about a few projects, or I might say, let's talk about this project a little bit more. It seems to be going slow, it seems to be going fast, whatever reasons we need to talk about it. Those are my comments. I don't know, Director Williams, if you have other comments.
No, the way you format your report, it's probably, I mean, that's not it. I mean, you tell them what we want, and they can format it, and it comes to us in a professional way. But I don't need to tell you how to do that. Really, I don't. But I'll follow the lead of my colleague here. But
we can prepare the report in any way you would like it. We had it in a certain way. We added more information based on your requests. We can take this. We can provide a table. Obviously, I'm sorry you didn't get the table from last year, but we'll definitely send you the information you requested. And then with regards to this presentation here, if you see any additional information that you'd like to add on it, we certainly can do that as well. We are happy to accommodate any reporting.
We're going to format something for that and give it to you. So save time. Format something for that. See, this is the way I want it.
All right. So remember that at this point, it's already 5:30. These meetings tend to get long.
I wonder why.
I don't want to cut anybody off. We have a whole series of projects to present. There's a lot of time and effort went into putting together the slides, etc. Are there any of those that you want to highlight without necessarily going through?
We weren't intending to talk about all the projects today. We were going to pick one slide to show you the type of information that's on there and see if you wanted any more information. And then we were going to ask you if you had any particular project that you wanted to talk about. We have our project managers in attendance. We can try to answer them, or the project manager can step up and answer any questions that you have. We certainly didn't want to take up all the time and go through every single project. But if you'd like, we can go through one example, or we can, again, proceed with the next item.
I'd like to see one example.
Yeah, it may be worthwhile for you to go over how you're going to be presenting the information in the future. That example that you talked about right at the beginning of your finished comments.
I'm sorry, Director Alvarez. I apologize. I couldn't hear you.
You talked about you had put together kind of the process you're going to be moving forward with. So let's just go through that. I think, and an example that would be beneficial.
So Wendell, perhaps you can go through the sample slide, if you will, and the information that's on there.
Okay. If everyone could turn to page 245 in the agenda package, and we will review the information that was requested over the last series of meetings and how we are presenting it. If you look on the left-hand side of the slide in the first table that's labeled budget, this provides you a history of when the budget was approved for this particular project, the most recent budget. It tells you the overall cost of the project over 5 years. Like most everyone knows, or they realize that the projects that we do here at the agency take quite a bit of planning involved in it. And so generally your planning and your engineering design is in your lead years, and then the actual construction are in your years out. This particular project, if we look at the solids handling improvement R&R, this is a refurbishment and replacement type project. And in this fiscal year, FY21-22, there is approximately $1 million that has been budgeted to it. The total estimated project cost is the $13.1 million that's depicted in the table. We also provide you with a summary of what has been spent to date, $287,699, and it also gives you what is remaining in the current budget that has been approved for this project. In this case, it's approximately $12.8 million. This particular project started back in 2017. And it appeared in the budget book of FY17-18, FY18-19, FY19-20, FY20-21, and FY21-22. And these are the dollar amounts that were approved in those budgets for this project. Additionally, there's at the bottom of the page, there's some budget notes that talk specifically that if there's anything unique about this budgetary process for this project or what the assumptions were. We've categorized our projects in this new format in either the planning, design, bidding, construction, closeout, or completion stage, so that it's easy if one of the directors or the public would like to say, hey, what's under construction, they can just go to the construction tab. And in this particular case, planning starts on page 244 in your agenda packet. Design is on page 252, starts in the agenda package. The bidding phase projects are listed on page 263, and the projects that are under construction are on page 265 in your agenda package, and pages 269 are the completed projects. On your right-hand side of this particular slide, there's a description and a benefit of what this description of this project is and how does it benefit the agency. Below that, we list the activities. What major milestones have been completed? In this particular case, we're talking about the initial feasibility study along with the sewer study. And currently, what are we working on? We're working on updating the sewer study and coming to a conclusion and developing a cost. It is critical when we talk about risk. This particular step in the process is extremely critical so that we can minimize the risk and provide us with an appropriate time schedule, as well as coordinating this construction activity at our Edward C. Little facility. And then there's a status or any changes or challenges that the project may be involved in.
Very educational.
Yes.
Do you have comments on that, Eric Williams?
Now, is this what you would present to us at like today's meeting?
If it suffices, yes. If there's additional information, we could certainly accommodate that.
Okay.
I think you got a lot of information here, and probably for, and this is just my opinion, for a monthly meeting, regular CIP status report, like a project manager would give a report. You got more than enough information here for that, right? And perhaps I would say you could like leave off the graphics, you know, but all the other information there would be enough, because all we need to know is what is the what work is being done, and what work has been completed, and what work is left to be done, and what is this budget, the money?
Yeah, what's the budget status?
Yeah.
Are you on or over budget?
And then, you know, if you are off budget, what would it take to get you back on? I mean, this is outstanding stuff here.
Thank you. A lot of team effort went into putting these pieces of information in here. If the committee is okay with that, what we would like to do is not necessarily go through all the projects every month, you know, but maybe highlight, like you said, the ones that there's an award coming in the next month or two that we give you a heads up on. The design services for this particular project is in play. We might be going out to bidding. We'll give you a heads up in particular. Or, like you said, if there are certain issues that we're anticipating with one project, change order, if you will, those are the types that we would like to bring it to the board's attentions ahead of time and give you a heads up on.
All right, so that's good. So you give us the summary and then you get specific. I do have some questions about this. So, and primarily they have to do with budget. So when I look at this, I say the budget for the approved budget for this project, assuming that it's correct that at each one of those board meetings, board meetings at those dates that you list there, that was what was actually approved. And then the budget for the project is $4.5 million. That's the budget. Okay. You're estimating the cost to be $12.7 million. But you have a budget of $4.5 million. And I'm assuming that budget's still there because to date you've only spent $300,000.
So what happened with this particular approval, this is a good example of a project that for one reason or another lagged. So if you can see the spent to date column there is $287,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's spent to date, not this year. That's spent to date from the inception of the project.
That's all you spent.
So while we went to the board and asked for budget approval for $1 million, and then the next year $1 million, and then the next year $1 million, we didn't necessarily spend that money. So this last year, for example, we came to the board and asked for $1 million, thinking that what we did is we said we're probably going to go into design phase. We came up with an expenditure distribution over the course of the 12 months and calculated what our expenditures could be if we went into design phase. That said, it's going to be probably around $1,030,000. So we come to the board, we ask for approval for that money. That gets approved, but as you can remember, for this particular project, for example, we went through, we've got the RFP for design services. There were some really good questions asked by the board members. We decided to go back, do some additional due diligence, ask some more questions. We find out that the county has changed their charges that could impact the conclusions of the study that we did. We said, you know what, we have to take a second look at this. And so we ended up not starting the design process, and therefore we didn't spend the money. So these approvals are done in series, but we didn't necessarily spend that money.
I agree with all of that. So again, I look at this and I say, in the budget, somewhere, we have $4.5 million plus or minus set aside for this project, of which we've only spent $300,000 today from inception back in 2017. 2017-18 was the first appropriation of money. So, and this is kind of more of a financing question for the budget. I look at this, I'd say, there's $4.5 million appropriated for this project. But in reality, there isn't. Right? In other words, there's not $4.5 million that's been set aside for this project.
If you're looking for affirmation, that's correct. West Basin historically has never rolled over their budgets as far as an appropriation, quote unquote, into new fiscal years.
Okay. So when you're showing me this table, then it's really not, it hasn't been budgeted even at $4.5 million. At best, it's been budgeted, the budget, if you said, where's the money, is going to be whatever was shown for this year, $1 million. But over the entire course of the project from the beginning, we only spent $300,000. When we talk about budgets and are we on budget, are we under budget, are we under budget, we need to know exactly how much money did we say we're going to spend. This is what we're going to appropriate. We're going to appropriate X million dollars. And then that may be done through a combination of ordinary income and some kind of debt financing or grants. And those are identified, and this is when these are going to kick in. But we know what that is. So ordinary income then gets set aside. That's money that's going to be, we would add up all that five appropriations, and we'd have $4.5 million, less than $300,000. And then we say, well, the rest of it is going to be funded through the financing, grants, combination of grant, debt financing, and or ordinary income. That's,
Yeah.
as a decision maker, that's the information I'd like to know.
Dr. Alvarez, you bring up a good point. Traditionally and historically, West Basin has approved these budgets in, if you will, in increments, basically for just that year. We're looking at the next fiscal year, and so what are we spending for the next fiscal year? $1 million. Let's just approve $1 million for this particular project. There are certain cases, when we went back and looked at the history in developing the table that you asked for, there are certain cases where very few cases where staff came to the board and said, hey, this project is going to cost $13 million from now until 5 years from now. Do I have your approval for the whole project? Not for this fiscal year only, but appropriation for the 13 over so many years. Historically, it hasn't been done that way. There's with a few exceptions. For example, this year we came to the board and got approval to replace a chemical day tank at ECL. We said this is what the tank is going to cost. This is a project, and the board said, okay, here's your approval to do the whole thing. It wasn't just an increment for this fiscal year, but if the board wishes to change that, we could certainly accommodate as staff, look at the policy. If the board wishes to look and appropriate for a whole project implementation, a whole project cost versus the increments that you see here before in the slide, on an annual basis.
I think that's the direction we're giving you. We want to know the whole picture because that then makes it a lot easier to make decisions about how you're spending money and where that money's going to come from.
Noted.
Okay, so a lot of this now goes back to the whole budgeting process, but it does that. And then back to this information is really good, but it's just tabulated. And then, like Director Williams, as you said, we'll just pick a couple of projects that really need to be highlighted, that we need the discussion or need direction from the board on. Okay, so with that, it's almost 5:45. We're going to end up the meeting. Again, we can't cover everything on the agenda, but we will basically move to closed session. We don't have any closed sessions today. We already took care of director's comments. So with that, we are adjourning till a month from today.
Chairman Alvarez, if I could ask for a clarification. We do have additional information items that I understand we don't have enough time for today. Typically, any sort of information item that is heard in committee obviously moves to the full board agenda, which are all received and filed. If it's okay with the chairman and the committee, I'd like to keep the items that have not yet been heard today on the full board agenda, and I'll differentiate just a couple of items. The water facility monthly operations update is provided and updated each month. If we weren't to include it in the full board meeting, the information provided therein would be dated and it would never be received and filed. We would just update it next month. So it might make sense again to do that. When it comes to item 6A, this was an information item that we wanted to bring forward to present that. It could be heard at the full board meeting. And then, of course, item 6C, the completion of the Recycle Water Master Plan. This item is just to conclude the Recycle Water Master Plan. All of the work that was related to the production of that document has been completed. The material contained within the Recycle Water Master Plan is completed, but it's online, it's available to the public now, and so we just wanted to tie that down and close that project out. So if it's okay with the chairman and the committee, we'd like to include the items that were not heard today on the full board agenda. We'll have staff available at the full board in case any director would like to pull those items.
Okay, I have one question. Of those 3 items, the one item I do want to see discussed is the Recycle Water Master Plan. And so if you're because I don't know how it's going to appear in front of the full board as it moves forward with recommendation. If it's only information only, without a recommendation for anything, then that's fine. But what I do want to revisit this, and it's going to take a full meeting or 2 to revisit this. This is not a small item. There are issues in there that I think are more important now than the way the report summary presents them. And there are things in the report summary that are really not as critical as the summary of the report would indicate. And I would like to have those discussions, and the appropriate place to have those discussions is me and I, not at the board meeting, because there's a lot of discussion to take on. And like I said, there will probably be more than one of our committee meetings.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you are correct. Moving things through the information calendar, again, the documents just get received and filed as part of the record. Secondly, when it comes to specific discussions of the Recycle Water Master Plan or specific additional presentations, staff is more than happy to bring back those at the direction of the chair and the committee, and we can do that in a series, or we can do something where we specialize in one area. We're happy to bring that back at your discretion. This is just to simply allow our consultants and of course staff to know that the work currently included in the report has been completed.
That's where we have a difference of opinion. I don't think so. And to this Recycle Master Plan, if you go to our website, it comes right up if you look for it. So as far as the average person out there, they reference and they say there's a master plan. I think that we do need to have some discussion, because like I said earlier, at least from my consideration, there are things that come across in the Water Master Plan that's more critical than they are given where we are today, and there are things that are less critical in the summary that really are more important where we are today. So that's why I would like to continue this discussion, but I want to have a thorough discussion, not a brush over. And I'm concerned that it appears on our website as a Recycle Water Master Plan, because the average person that goes to a website and looks at a master plan, they say, oh, they're going to do all of this, and this is their master plan. And I don't think that that's the intent of this document.
If I may, EJ, the Recycle Water Master Plan, Dr. Alvarez, this one is a little bit unique in that we couldn't come up with a final CIP. The way it's written towards the end is that it provides the board all with options. And it doesn't really fixate into this is what the district is doing. we couldn't do that because of all the regional questions that we have to answer and certain other topics related. So in a way, it has been prepared in a way where there's options in there, and those options will not be finalized until the board decides a particular direction or adopts a particular strategy towards purple pipe, towards IPR, towards DPR, towards working with our regional partners. And so that was the only way we could prepare this master plan, is to keep it optional and put some ideas out there. And those ideas we'd like to kind of bring back to the board, as you mentioned, and vet them with you. There's always going to be, there always can be opportunity to come back and say, bring back a consultant and say, let's now update this with a fixed plan.
Okay. So, given what you just said, really, it's not a master plan, really. It's not, here's what we're going to do. It is an assessment of the status of things and opportunity. So you can call this the Recycled Water Master Plan, or if I heard you correctly, it would be better to call it the Recycled Water System Conditions, Assessments, and Opportunities. Because it has a whole range of things that the board still has to decide.
And we're happy to pull that if that's the direction of the committee.
Okay.
We would move it forward.
All right, so with that, I think we've got direction, and we are adjourned.
If you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I would like to just add one final comment. I know time is late, but we do have a couple of guests that have joined us today for this committee meeting. Obviously, Suez has done an amazing job of managing our primary facility, the Edward Seawater Water Recycling Facility, along with our satellite facilities as well. Lorenzo has been a part of the team for West Basin and, of course, Suez for the past, I believe, 6 years. He is with us today, and his final day working at the Edward Seawater facility, I believe, is on Friday. We do have Dave Schneider here, again, part of the team, and I just want to recognize Lorenzo for all the work that he's done, and we're very sad to see and hear that he's leaving.
Okay, is Orlando on the,
Yes, Lorenzo, I just saw his camera popped out.
I don't see him.
I don't see him, but anyways, Lorenzo, I'm very happy that I had the pleasure to meet with you. I really did get a better understanding of a few things. So I agree with our general manager that you are a very valuable asset to Suez and consequently to us.
Oh, very nice.
And I'm very sad to see you leaving so soon. I wish that we would have had under presentation something a little bit more for you. But thank you for all of your help over these years to West Basin. Okay. One last thing. We've kind of gone over a lot, and I don't know if we have any board members still on. Any closing comments from any board members? We've already took comments from the board. But any closing comments? Okay.
I would just like to say to my good friend here, Lorenzo, take care and thanks for all your help. And then you helped me on a project. I think it was like 2016. You gave me a tour of the plant, and we had fun with that in another venue, but I never got a chance to show it to you. But thank you so much for your help on that. It was a community project. Thank you.
And one last thing, maybe we can have Lorenzo come to the board meeting and make a small presentation to him and show gratitude. Okay, for that, we are adjourned.
Thank you, Chairman Alvarez, members of the committee and board, guests, staff, of course. Thank you, everyone.
COVID put a kibosh on a lot of stuff. So COVID. It's just, yeah. We were off to a good start.